Okay, hello everyone. I welcome you to this session in which we are going to learn about the mail match feature in Microsoft Office Word. And for this lesson, I'll be using the Microsoft Office Word package, the package of version 2021, which is for last year. And I would like to make sure that you understand this. It will help you a lot, especially when you're answering your practical questions. And there will be some hints that I'll be mentioning as we move on. If there is something that you want to do or maybe not, it's possible. You can pause the video and then you note and you continue from there by unpausing it or playing it. So without wasting time, this session is going to be done with the help of a question which has already been set by me. Of course, there is a trial question that I normally share with you guys before we come back to the sessions. Now, if you don't have the trial question, I'm just going to share with you can check down in the video description for the link to that document. You'll be able to access it. It is going to have the trial question that we shall be using to do this work. Now, as you can observe on my desktop here, this is the trial question that I'll be using. Of course, for your case, it will be given to you on a piece of paper, especially the time you're going to do your practical questions. Now, this will apply mainly for O level and A level. I want to go into depth. I'm giving you hints on how you can basically come up with the mail match feature. Now, when we are dealing with the mail match feature, we must understand that this feature helps us to send multiple copies of the same letter to different recipients. Now, as we all know, the recipients are the people who are receiving the letters, and then the sender can be someone who is in a company. Say the headmaster of a school is sending letters to the parents of students in that school. Now, to get started, we must know that before you start doing anything and while you're given the papers where your practical questions have been set, you should always take it a note or take it a point to skim through the work that has been given to you on the piece of paper. Now, this work is going to help you understand. It's going to help you understand whatever you are supposed to do. Whatever you're supposed to do. Now, before we get started, before I open that document, I'd want us to understand what exactly mail merging is. Now, we already have defined it and what it is comprised of. We should also get to know that. Now, for purposes of your practicals, you should always be aware that this mail merge feature works with two documents. One document is what we call the starting document, which is going to comprise of the main document that we're working on. This could be a letter, it could be an envelope, or it could be any label that you want to send to multiple recipients. Then the other document is going to be a document which will contain the data source or the table in which we are going to specify our recipients. Now, both of these documents must be created by you, or you can create them as you're working. But for purposes of your practicals, I want you to get used to creating these before you come to that feature. Now, let me simply go ahead and open this. It's going to open, and like I told you, I'm using the 2021 version of this package, Microsoft Office Word. That's why you can see the opening, or what we call the splash screen, is a little bit different from the previous versions. All right, so when you look at the screen, on our screen we have that question, and I've called the trial question. And when you read the first instruction, it says study the text provided below and answer the questions that follow. So that is already a guide to what you must do. So like I told you before earlier on in your previous sessions, that whenever you come up with such a question, the first thing you must do is to skim through and to see exactly what the question requires of you. You will know this is a mail merge question, or a question which requires you to use the mail merge feature, after you have skimmed through it. So when you skim through it, of course, you can get hints that this could be a mail match feature simply by looking at these field names, or what we call the merge fields, which are placed in box brackets. Of course, this is our data, and we also have a table here. Now remember, this is simply a question presented on your question paper. Luckily enough, I'm able to have it here on my computer as soft copy, which is going to enhance our session to go on more smoothly. Now, when you look at the first instruction tells you to type the letter and save it as permit letter, then your name. Okay, keeping that in mind, we must understand that this will help us do most of the work more easily, creating this file and then also saving it before we actually start with our work. So the second instruction is asking us to create a table. Now this table is the one I was calling a data source. Okay, it's going to help us do the rest of it's going to help us get the recipients. And to obtain that table, you'll actually insert it by using what is already presented to you on your question paper. Now, without wasting time, that is our question. Let me go ahead and simply create those two documents. Now, I always tell my students that whenever you're doing a practical question, it is advisable for you to move down to the instruction where you're supposed to save your work in a folder using certain names, and then also the names that you're giving to those documents that you're trying to save in this folder. Now, how can we easily do this? Before you start as a student, and mainly my students, what I tell them to do before you start working on your application or working on the document that you've been provided with, it is always advisable for you to create these files or the documents before you start working on them. How are we going to do this is it's what we are going to look at next. So we are going to go ahead and create a new folder, but you must be keen enough to know how you're supposed to save the folder, and this information most of the times is given to you in your question paper. Now as you scroll down, they have already told you how you are supposed to save the names or the documents for the table and the letter. Okay, you know how you're going to save them using your name, permit table your name, or permit letter your name. Then somewhere as you move down to the seventh instruction saying save your work in your folder named your name and print all the 6 letters. Okay, now the instruction is clear. The folder should be your name. Now I always tell you to create this folder on the desktop. So you'll move to your desktop. On your desktop, you're going to create a folder. How can you create this folder? I like to use the shortcut keys on my keyboard. The shortcut key for creating a new folder on your keyboard is the shift button pressed together with the control button and then letter N. When you press that letter N, a new folder will be created for you, but it will be prompting you to immediately enter the name of that folder that you're creating. Now, immediately you can simply go ahead and create this folder. Let me call this folder John Doe. Let me call my name. Let me say it is John Doe. And then I'm going to press enter to save that name I've given it. So I have already created that folder called John Doe, which is my name as per se. Now that John Doe is an empty folder. Why is it an empty folder? It doesn't have any document in it. And how do I know that? When I open John Doe, you can actually see that it is empty. It is an empty folder. It is an empty folder. Now, after creating this folder, by the way, for your information, that isn't the only way you can create the new folder. Another way you can create that new folder is simply by right-clicking anywhere on this desktop. When you right-click on the desktop, you'll be presented with those options. Now, one of the options is called New, and when you just point at it, it will open a second window, which is going to list for you all the kinds of documents or files you can create on your desktop. So you'll simply move and click on folder. That will create a new folder for you here. Okay, so that is another way, but I like to use the shortcuts because it's much more easier to do and faster to do. So I'll just go ahead and remove that, and for purposes of visibility I'm going to keep my John Doe near my file. Now that I've created it, the next step to do is to create the two documents. Okay, how do I do that? I'll right click anywhere inside this folder, and then I'll move to new. Under new, I'll click on Word document. Why is it a Word document? Because we are going to work on a Word document which is going to require us to use the mail merge feature. Okay, now how were we told to save this Word document? Now this Word document I'm creating is the starting document, which is going to possess our letter. And from the instructions, if I'm not mistaken, from the instructions, we are supposed to save it as permit letter plus our name. Okay, so I'll come back here and I'm going to rename it as permit letter. Excuse me. I'm going to rename permit letter hyphen John Doe. Okay, there I have created that. Now this document I've created is still an empty document. It's a document consisting of nothing. It has nothing yet. And how am I able to know that? When you look at the size, it is actually 0 kilobytes, meaning there is nothing typed in it yet. Then I'll go ahead and also create the second document that with our data source that we are supposed to use to obtain the information to send to these recipients. So I'll go ahead and also select the Word document, and I will call it a permit. I will call it the permit table hyphen John Doe. Okay, I'll also call it permit table John Doe, and I'm going to press enter. It is having nothing as well, as you can see. The size is still 0 kilobytes. Now that I've created these two documents, I am ready to go. Now for your information, this data source is not necessarily a table that will be created in Word, okay? But I'm creating it in Word because it is the instruction that I've been given in the question. So it can be a database table, it can be an Excel table that you can use as a data source. Why we're creating it in Word is because the instruction in the question is for us to save it as this in Word document. So we have our documents here, the starting document and the data source. Okay, those are the two things that we shall need for our our mail merge to work. Okay, now we all know what that starting document is, and we know what the data source is, or the recipients list is. Okay, it's where we're supposed to obtain the information. Now let us start with the letter. When you go back to the question, the first instruction is type the letter and save it as permit letter. Now that is something you're supposed to do, and here we are testing skills of typing, how you place your fingers, whether you use one finger or two fingers or whatever finger. This is the part where we test your typing skills. So you're supposed to type the letter as it is. The way it appears is the way you must type it in your document. Since I have it here in soft copy, and to save time, I'm simply going to copy this document. I'll copy it. I'll copy by right clicking and then clicking on copy, or I could simply use the Ctrl plus S, the Ctrl C shortcut on my keyboard to copy it, and then I'll paste it in my new folder, which is going to be the permit letter. Since I haven't opened it, I'm going to go ahead and open it from the folder that I created, John Doe, from my John Doe folder. I'll open it from there so that I obtain it and I paste it here. Remember what I told you about copying. When we are copying, it involves the use of what we call a clipboard. And our clipboard is simply a temporary storage where we keep copied or cut text as we are dealing with these applications. And you can actually see what you have already copied from the clipboard when you click on it. Under home, there's a group for clipboard. When you click on the clipboard, you can see all the items that have been copied to clipboard. So here's our letter that I already copied. and it is temporary. Why? Because when I close this application and I open it the second time, it's going to lose whatever is on the clipboard. All right, now that I've typed, let's say I've typed my letter, and now I'm left with the second document. So before I go to open the second document, always make sure you save this work. You save it. You can save it by clicking on that. You can save it by clicking on that. You can save it by clicking on that icon. Now that action, that bar, that icon is going to help us save. So when I click on it, you can actually see that this document has now been saved to document, to this PC, sorry. Now this document being saved, we are going to open our second document, which is going to contain our table, because on our question paper, that is actually the next instruction. Okay, we already typed the letter. Now we are going to create a table and save it as PAMI table. Our name, already we have saved it. The only thing we're going to do is to go ahead and add content there. Now I could also go and simply copy and paste the table and just paste it here, and we'll move on. But for purposes of understanding, I will simply quickly go through how you can insert a table. Now to insert a table, we make use of a menu. In the menu bar, we make use of the menu in the menu bar called insert. So now this is the menu that we shall be using to insert a document. Now this insert menu has a lot of stuff that we can insert into our document. These are represented by different icons, and this is located in what we call a menu bar. So the whole of this bar, which contains the menus, is what we call a menu bar. It is what we call a menu bar because it contains the menus. Then the menus contain different groups of icons or of representations of what we can use to do what onto our document. For example, under the home, we can see we have the clipboard, we have the font, which we normally use for formatting, we have the paragraphs, and so on and so on. But under insert, we can actually find other groups that we could use to manipulate our document. Now among those groups, there is a group called tables. Now that group contains this icon for inserting a table or for adding a table. Once you click on it, it's going to open for you this small dialog box. Now you can either insert a table by simply selecting the number of cells along the row and the columns, or you can go ahead and simply click on insert and then specify the number of columns and rows that you want to insert into your document. Now looking at our table here, our table consists of about 7 rows and columns. Let's count together. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 columns, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 rows. Now we must understand this. In this table, or what we call the data source table, there are certain things that we need to understand. The rows that we see here, the rows that I'm highlighting, the whole of that row is what we call a record. Okay, the whole of that row is what we call a record. However, when you look at the columns also, the columns are called fields. Okay, now these fields are represented by what we call field names. Okay, for example, the first column that I've highlighted here is having a field name called student's name. It's actually a field name. It's actually what we are calling that column, and these field names are the ones which will help us come up with our mail merge feature by linking this table or data source to our letters. We have another column name here called parent's name, mobile contact, and so on and so forth. Now that we understand this and we have learned how to insert the tables, so we shall go ahead and simply insert this table, which has 7 rows and 7 columns. I'm typing this. Of course, you can also just play around with the arrows by increasing and reducing, but to be very fast, I simply go ahead, click inside, and I type it. Okay, so now I'll go ahead and click on OK, and voila, we see our table there. Okay, it's not magic, it's simply the beauty of technology. We are simply embracing technology of the word processors. So we have our table there. The next thing to do could be simply typing in the usernames. Okay, I mean the field names, like student name, we have parents name, we have contact. So whatever I'm typing here are what we call the field names. Okay, whatever I'm typing here is what we call the field names, because I'm trying to make sure that whatever information falls in that column is actually described by the field name. For example, when you say student names, it's going to, you'll know definitely that in that column you'll only be possessing, or that column will be possessing, names of students. Same thing applies to this other one. So doing that, we now know how to insert a table, but I want to go through the stress of coming up with a fresh table. So what I'll simply do is I'll go ahead and copy my table from here. To copy it, I'll click on that icon at the top left corner of the table to help me highlight the whole table, and then I'll use the shortcut on my key Ctrl C to copy it, or I can simply right click on the highlighted table and then click on copy. Now once I've copied that, whatever I've copied is now on our clipboard, which is going to help us paste it in our document called permit table, then John Doe. Now that I've done that, I'm simply going to go ahead and save it. Okay, I'm going to save this by pressing Ctrl S on my keyboard. Okay, I have saved it. Okay, I would really appreciate it if you get used to the shortcuts, because these shortcuts can help you do your work faster, and you save a lot of time. Now as you're working, please always remember to save your work so that you don't lose it in case power goes off, because most of these practical exams or tests you're going to do them on desktop computers. Okay, most of which may not be connected to uninterruptible power supplies, so you may easily lose your work. However, it may not be the case in the latest versions of these Microsoft packages, because they have the capability of retrieving whatever you haven't saved so that you can continue from there. But sort of that, you may lose your work, and that will make you repeat your work. So we have our two documents here now. When you move back to the folder, you can now actually see that our folder now has data, and you can see the size has now increased to 13 KBs for the letter and 14 kilobytes for the table, our data source. Now that we have done that, and we have saved our two documents, we have finished typing the tables, we can then go ahead and look at the real deal, how we are going to merge these two different recipients, as we can see on our data source here on the screen. Now let's move back to our starting document. Now every other thing that we're going to do is going to be done on this starting document. Okay, it is the document that we shall be using to create this mail merge, these letters, and sending it to different recipients, 6 of them as shown on our data source. Now let's move on. Now we're going to use a feature called mail merge. We're going to use a feature called mail merge, and that mail merge feature is found in here. Okay, that is the menu that we can use to perform our mail merge, as you can see on the icon on the screen there. Now this mail merge feature is very important, and it is going to help us do this easily, because it helps to easily do this by making use of our wizard, as we are going to see. So to start your mail merge, simply click on mailings in your menu bar. when you click on mailings, under mailings you'll see that we have different groups as well, but the second group, as we can see, is saying start mail merge. Okay, the second group is start mail merge. Second group I'm talking about is the whole of this group. It is called start mail merge, and it is where your focus should be. Okay, that is where your focus should be. Now, sorry, actually we're supposed to use start mail merge. Okay, supposed to use start mail merge, not selecting recipients. I'm sorry for that. So under start mail merge, when you click on it, you'll see that we have the different options of documents that we can use, the different options of documents that we can use this feature on. Like I told you before, you can use it to send letters, email messages, envelopes, labels, and so on and so on. But you always click on the step-by-step mail merge to make your processing of this mail merge feature, mail merge easier. Okay, use the step by step. It is going to help you go through each and every step without missing one, and in total we normally have about 6 steps. Okay, as you can see, after clicking on the icon, we have a window which has appeared here. Okay, we have this window, the pane, you can call it a pane, which appears right here. Now that window is where we are going to do most of the work. Okay, most of the work is going to be done there. Actually, everything that we are going to need to come up with these letters is going to be done from that pane which has opened there. And to access that pane, we know where we clicked. Okay, we clicked on start mail. Okay, after clicking on start mail, then we clicked on step by step. Okay, step by step. Okay, start mail, then step by step mail merge wizard. Now, when you look at that pane, the very first step is a step where we select the document type that we need to use this mail merge feature on. Right now we are dealing with letters, so it is the letters that we are using. If you're coming up with a document, or you want to use this mail merge feature to send email messages, then you'll have to select that option. Then the same thing applies to the other types. So right now we are dealing with letters. I've selected the document type. Then I'll come right down here. I'll come down here where I will click on next. Okay, to select the starting document. So when you click on next, of course the previous has to appear. So previously we had selected the document type. Now we are selecting the recipients. We are selecting the starting document. Okay, and when we click on the next, but when we click on this link here, it's going to take us to the next step, which is selecting recipients. But for now, let us select the starting document. So our starting document is going to be the document that we are working on right now, the letter that we had already typed. Okay, so I'll simply click on that option, which is to use the current document. So the current document that we're dealing with is that letter. Okay, now if you don't have that letter, or if you don't have a document that you have already created, these two other options will then help you. Okay, so you can start from a template. I already explained to you what a template is. A template is simply something which has been pre-made for you, so that you'll simply make changes to it. We have these templates in Word. For example, if I'm to open a new document here, okay, if I'm to open a new document and I click on file, you can actually see that we have different templates here, and you can get to access more when you click on the link called more templates, and you will be able to see these templates only if you're connected to the internet, because these are fetched from the servers of the Microsoft Office. Okay, now you can search for a template. Right now we're dealing with letters. Okay, you can search for a template. It's going to search thousands of online templates, and it will present to you many of them, and you'll select the one that you require. Now these templates, as you can see, have already been made. If I'm to open one, for example that, and I click on create, it's going to open it the way it is. Okay, like you can see here, it has opened it the way it is. Why we call it a template? It has already been made. Okay, the only thing that I'll have to do is make changes to its content. For example, this is not my image. I'll simply go ahead and change it. Okay, I can change that image. Okay, now also these are not my details, so I'll simply go ahead and make changes to this, but the whole outlook, how it appears, remains the same. That is what we mean by a template. Okay, now that we have understood that, I think we can move on. Okay, I think we can move on back to our mail merge letter here. So we're going to continue with our current document, and then we shall select next. Next, you're supposed to select the recipients. Now these recipients, we select them from the data source that I already told you we had to create. That table that we created called permit table, John Doe is the recipient that we are going to, the data source that we are going to use. Now when you're selecting these recipients, you can either select an existing list. You can use an existing list, which is the case for us now because we had already created our data source. It is already existing within the computer's location or within the computer's memory. Or if you don't have an existing location or an existing list, you can go ahead and type a new list. Okay, and when you click on create, you can see you are able to type in the different you can type in the details as you want. Okay, but for our case, we have already an existing list, so I'll simply check on the existing list. The only thing I'll have to do is find where I saved this list, and this is now where the part I said it is important for you to keep this in the same folder so that you can easily find it. So when you click on browse to get our data source, I know I saved it in my folder called John Doe, and that folder was on the desktop. So I'll move to my desktop and I'll double click on John Doe to open what is inside, and then I'll click on table, permit table John Doe, because it is my data source. After clicking on it and highlighting it or checking it, I'll then go ahead and click on open. Now when you click on open, it's actually going to fetch your table the way it is with all its content. Okay, you can see up there, you can see up there we have the title, we have automatically we have student's name, parent's name. When we continue moving to the right, you can see that all the other field names are there, and these field names have been fetched from our table. Okay, now something to explain about these these checkboxes here. Okay, now these checkboxes are very important in that they allow you to select the number of recipients to whom you want to generate this letter. Now right now we have 6 recipients, and when you looked at our question, we are supposed to create this letter and send it to the 6 recipients. So if the instruction was to send this to about the first three recipients, then I would go ahead and simply select the first 3. Okay, the first 3 recipients, the way you see it there. So it will only generate letters for 3 recipients. So I'll only check those while the rest are unchecked. And to uncheck it, you simply click inside the table, and to check it, you can click inside the table, or you can simply use the space bar on your key to toggle between the check and the unchecking. Okay, now that we're doing this for all of the recipients, we're going to keep it the way it is, and then I'll simply go ahead and click on OK. Now how do I know that my data source has already been added? Right here, let me just increase the size of that window. Right here you can see that it has actually given us the current location. The path to our data source has been put here, meaning we have already inserted our permit table data source. Okay, now that we have done that, we have already selected the recipients, we can go ahead to the next step, which is to write your letter. Now here is where you're supposed to write your letter, but we already have our letter. Now the only thing we now need to do here is to go ahead and link our letter with our data source that we have already added. And how are we going to do that? Now in our letter, as you can see, we have what we call the merge fields which are in box brackets. Now we are going to replace these merge fields with the data with the field names, or with the fields that we have in our data source. Okay, so our data source field names are going to be placed here instead of these merge fields. Now let us start with the address block. The whole of this is what we call the address block. Okay, so we are going to start by replacing merge fields that we can find in the address block. How are we going to do that? We shall select the first merge field that we want to replace. You highlight it or you select it. Make sure you select the boxes too, the box brackets too. Okay, now the box brackets and the content in between those box brackets, the opening and closing box bracket, we can select them. After selecting that, you'll come back to your window for mail merge and you'll click on more items. When you click on more items, this window appears. This window is going to help you select which data source field to replace the merge field with. Now that is why you have to put the merge fields, the name you give to them, what you call the merge field should be something which can easily help you identify which field in our data source to replace it with. So student's name, I'm going to of course replace it with the student's name, and then I'll click on insert. Now after you click on insert, you'll notice that the box brackets and the content which was in the box bracket changes. Now instead of the merge field, we now have the exact field name of that field in our data source, okay, in double angle brackets. So doing that, we can close that window, and we do the same for the remaining merge fields. Parent's name, I'll select parent's name, I'll insert it, close, and then move this down so that our letter remains clean. I'll enter, that is the mobile contact, insert, then I'll go ahead and close. After closing that, we'll leave that space. Dear title, this is the title, the greeting line. Remember, we are only selecting the data, the merge fields, and I'm replacing this with the field name title. Go ahead and close that. The next merge field that we need to replace is the sex of this student. Go ahead and check sex of student, okay, and then the next is category of participant. So I'll go ahead and select category of participant, okay, and then replace it with the exact field name in our data source called category of participant. Now that I've done that, I have finished replacing all the merge fields that I require or I need. Okay, now after I do that, I can genuinely say that now at least I have finished mail merging. Okay, I have finished mail merging, so I can simply go ahead and preview by clicking on next step, which is preview your letters. So now that I've clicked on it, you can see now in our letters, this is the sixth letter. This for the sixth recipient. How am I able to know that? Up there in our toolbar, you can actually see that we have number 6. So that is the sixth letter, and that sixth letter is going to the parent of Ladley Robert, who is called Okidi Fred. And Okidi Fred, you can see here the merge field is being replaced by the son, and then we have his performance as drama and so on. If you want to preview the rest of the letters, you'll simply make use of these arrows here to move one step back, okay, one step back, one step back, one step back, or you can use the other to move to the last record and this other one to move to the very first record. Okay, that is how you can maneuver through the letters. Now that we have done that, I'll simply go ahead and click on complete the merge. Okay, complete the merge. Okay, complete the merge. I have finished completing the merge. Now that I'm in the the 60th step, it now presents me with two options to complete mail merge. Those two options are print and edit individual letters. Now, if we move back to our question, when we move back to our question to see how actually they wanted us to answer this, before we created the mail merge, we were supposed to include a footer of our name and index number. Now what you must understand is that when you set this footer in one of the letters, it's going to be automatically applied to all the letters. Then we are supposed to do the mail merge after we had inserted the footer, but it doesn't matter because we can still go ahead and insert the footer in our merged letters. How do we do that? We can find the footer and the header under the insert menu. Okay, we can do that. We can find it under the insert menu, and our insert menu is that. Okay, that is our insert menu. So when you click on the insert menu, under the insert menu we have all these various groups, but the group right now we are interested in is the group called header and footer. So that is the group that we want to make use of, and that is the group where we shall find our header and footer. Right now our question is asking us to insert a footer only. Okay, it's asking us to insert a footer only. So that is what we are going to do. So we shall simply go ahead and click on footer. When you click on footer, it's going to present you with the different options, or the different formats in which you can write the footer. But since it is asking us to write a footer of our name and our index number, I'll just select any, and then I'll simply go ahead and edit it. Okay, so I'll type there my name is John Doe, and then I'll make use of the tab, and then I can put my index number. Let's say my index number is 03311/n. Okay, something like that. Doing that, I am already done inserting my footer. So when I double click outside the bottom margin, you can see that my footer is already inserted there. My footer consists of my name and my index number. That is how you can easily insert a footer. Now, for people who didn't know what a footer is simply any kind of text that you place in the bottom margin of your document. Now, the bottom margin of our document is where we insert the footer. However, to insert the header, we do that in the top margin. Okay, that is our top margin. Okay, anything that we insert in the top margin is what we shall be calling a header. Okay, now that we have done that, I think you can clearly see that when I move back to mailings to check the other letters, when I move to the second letter, you'll still notice that my footer and header is still there. Okay, even the third, even the fourth, and even the fifth, and lastly the sixth, all the header, the footer is in all of them, is placed in all of those letters. Now let's go ahead and look at what we wanted us to do next after inserting them, after processing the mail merge, the letters with mail merge. We're finished doing that. Now we're supposed to set the left and right page margins to 1.5 inches. We're supposed to set the left and right margins, okay, to 1.5 inches. Now, to do that, we must know how we can change them, how we can change the units in which we are supposed to manipulate our Word documents in. Okay, now by default, these documents, everything is in centimeters. The units that they use is centimeters, but we can change it to inches. How are we going to do that is what I'm going to show you now. Now, when we are told to manipulate or to change the sizes of the margins, that is something to do with indentation. Okay, that is something to do with indentation, and indentation is found under the menu home in a group called paragraph. Okay, this group called paragraph is where we can find indentation. Okay, now to get access to that, to get access to the paragraph or to do the indentation and manipulate, we need to access the paragraph settings. Okay, the paragraph settings, we can access them by simply clicking on this arrow in the bottom left and the bottom right corner of that group. That small arrow I'm pointing at is an arrow that you click on to access the paragraph settings. So I'll simply go ahead and click on it. Once I click on it, I have my settings here. Now, we are asked to change the left and the right margins. We are supposed to separate them or to give them as a width of 1.5 inches. Right now it is in inches, and I'm able to know that by looking at the units up there, okay, on top of 0. So I'll simply go ahead and change that to 1.5. I'll also go ahead and change this to 1.5, and once that is done, I'll click on OK. Oh, sorry about that. First, we needed to highlight the whole document, and then do that later on. Okay, so 1.5 inches and 1.5 inches. Then I will click on OK, and I'll click on OK. Let me increase this to 1.5. Let me also increase this to 1.5. Okay, then I can click on OK. Oh, sorry. .5 and this to 1.5 as well. Okay, left and right, and then I click on OK. Right, so there we have done it. Don't forget to always highlight whatever a paragraph that you want to apply the indentation to. So whatever we do here in one letter is going to be done on all the other letters. So we have manipulated the sizes of the right and the left margin as instructed by the instruction in our question paper. Now that we have done that, we need to go back to our question. Now, or before we go back to our question, we must understand that it is possible to change the units. Okay, to change the units. And how do you do that? We find that under options, after you click on file. When you click on file and then you move down to the options, it's going to present you with all the options, and among these options we have one other option that we need to change. Okay, that option is about showing the units. Okay, and we can find that under the advanced. We can find that under advanced. Okay, this advanced option here. Okay, so once we click on advanced, it's going to take us to all the other options. And then when you look at these other options, there is one option which is going to help us change the units of our measurements in this Word document, and that option is called show show measurements in the units of, right now it is inches. Okay, so if I needed to change that, I'll simply click on inches and then select the other units to use. Okay, and select the other units to use. You can use centimeters, then you can use inches, and so on and so on. Thank you. Now once you've done that, remember right now we're supposed to do this in inches, that's why I'm leaving it in inches. And after doing that, that's also a mark that I have gotten, or I have obtained. Now going back to our question for the next instruction, the next instruction is telling us to insert a printed watermark. Insert a printed watermark of the name of your school in the entire document. Now to obtain a watermark, we can actually see, we can find our watermark under a menu called design. Now this menu called design is where we shall be able to find our watermark. So when you click on that menu called design, you can see that our watermark is right here. Okay, our watermark is right here. So when I go ahead and click on it, it's going to present me with the different formats that we could use. But this format that we're supposed to insert into this document is a custom watermark that we shall need to type. Okay, it's supposed to be typed there. And to do that, since we are going to use text, we shall simply check the text watermark, and then we change the text to the school. Okay, Namilyango, we shall call it Namilyango College. Namilyango College. I can add the Nisi Dominus. Okay. So I've entered that. We haven't been asked to change the font style, so I'll leave it as Calibri, and I'll also leave the size as auto, and then probably I can change the color for visibility. Let me put it in red. Okay, let me use red. So once I do that, it's going to be diagonal. The rest of this haven't been specified to us, so we shall simply go ahead and click on apply. Now once you click on apply, you'll actually notice that now we have a watermark. We have our watermark right there. Okay, our watermark is right there, and this watermark is applied onto all of the letters that we have mail merged or we have processed. And how am I able to know that? When I move back to mailings and I preview other letters, you can actually see that they are the same. Okay, they are the same, so nothing has changed. Now let's move on to the last instruction. The last instruction is telling us to save. The last instruction is telling us to save our work in our folder name, but we already did that, so the only thing we can do is to go ahead and print all the letters. Now we're supposed to save our work in our folder named our name, John Doe. Okay, so let's go ahead and save our letters. But before we save the letters, we must understand that these letters, we are going to save them individually. They are going to be in first I'm saving the process of whatever we have done here. But these letters, we are going to save them differently, because when we edit the individual letters, when you click on edit individual letters, it is going to ask you whether you want to merge the records, all of them, or you want to merge from one. So we are going to merge all of them, all the records, so that all the 6 letters appear in one document. And to do that, I'll simply click on OK. Once I click on OK, it's going to open these letters on a different document called letters 1. It is giving it a default name letters 1 because it is a mail merge feature that we have used to create this document. However, we have been asked to save this document using a different name in our folder. Okay, so to do that, I'll simply go ahead and click on save. Okay, this time let's use the most appropriate way. You click on File and then click on Save. When you click on Save, you'll have to browse to your folder, and our folder is right there. If you don't see it there, you'll click on Browse and then select Desktop and find John Doe. So we are supposed to save this. We're supposed to save this document with our names, John Doe, okay? And then click on Save. Now I have saved my letters to my folder with my names. And then the last option where we are supposed to print these letters is what we are going to do next. So now that we have all these letters in the same document, okay, in the same document, we can then go ahead and print them, okay? And how do we do that? You simply click on File and then click on Print. When you click on Print, you can see all the 6 letters are there for you to print with a different information placed on them, okay? With a different information placed on them. You can preview them and then you select the number of copies you want to print out. Select the printer which has been connected to your computer. Right now I don't have a printer connected to my computer, but if you have it connected, for example, if my Hewlett Packard HP LaserJet, the 400 color printer is connected, you will see that it is going to be having a status of online. Then you can select to print all pages. Of course, that is what they have asked us to do, to print all the letters. Okay, and after doing that, after setting all the settings, after changing all the settings to your preferences, you can then go ahead and click on Print. Once you click on Print, you will see an output of the hard copy letters coming out of your printer. And that will bring us to the end of the session where we learn about mail